Hi, good morning, everybody. Is this one hot? I got a hot mic. Can you hear me, everybody in the back? Well, good morning. I'm Chris Ryniak, and this is...
Hi, I'm Louise Spayd. Do you want to start your intro? Or do you want to thank people? Okay, thank you to everybody. Thanks to Thomas and Aaron for having us here. Thanks to Phoenix Coffee. Thanks to Clark Pope for all the food. Thanks to Rosetta for hosting us. And thanks to all of you for actually coming out in the gross rain to come see us. So that's awesome. So supposedly we have a slideshow.
Oh, where's the slideshow? Yeah,
we're working on a slideshow currently. Oh, look at his calendar. There we go. Okay, here we are. Here's us. Well, not really, but here's incarnations of us.
All right. So we're just going to get into it. I'm going to give you a little introduction into what I do. I am an artist, but in a lot of different facets. I do sculptures, paintings, design, toy design. What you're looking at right now are a couple of original resin cast pieces for a show in Albuquerque. And we kind of show all over the world, but Albuquerque is sort of our main base gallery. I forgot to mention, I'm originally from Detroit, but I live in Bay Village now. So this thing is cutting in and out. Like crazy. Step away.
There you go. Here, I'll do your slideshow.
Okay, go next. Here's a couple more resin pieces from our last show at our gallery, Stranger Factory. It's not actually our gallery, but it's where we show. Here's a few more resin pieces. The one, go back.
Sorry.
Back. You're going the wrong way. The guy on that would be the left, is cast out of two different types of resin, translucent resin on the bottom, and you can kind of see the skeleton coming through. That's actually a piece that's encapsulated inside the resin. The guy on the right is much bigger. He's a pretty large piece. That's all cast resin also. Those are both for gallery shows as well. This is the entirety of a show, of one half of a show. So I think there's something like 40 pieces in that picture. There's a lot. And they range from about 3 inches tall to as big as that is. I don't have a ruler with me. Okay, go to the next one. These guys are called Cherblefurb. They're cast resin hand painted.
Can you talk a little bit about your names?
Oh, okay. So all the names of my characters are I sort of have a formula for it. I don't want to divulge the formula, but I name them really strange names just so if you do a search for them on the internet, that's the only thing you're going to find.
There's like Burble Bum, Triple Fur,
yeah.
Fuzzle Thumb,
Bubble Gut, Husky Shuffler.
Snursion.
Yeah, I have a whole list of just made up names.
They sound like sneezes.
Right. Okay. There's Burble Bum. And in true collaboration, Amanda actually made the tiny little crates that are in the background there.
Those crates are about 2 inches across. They're really, really small. I made them out of popsicle sticks.
Okay, next. Okay, this is Bubble Gut. He's probably my most well-known character.
He likes cake.
He likes cake. And as soon as this thing hit the internet, everybody wanted them, but they're made in really small quantities, so and they're really difficult to paint. So if you want one of those, you probably can't get one. This is Bugbite. Bugbite is, oddly enough, like the biggest seller out of everything that we do, probably because to this date, this is what we've made the most of. They're about 1 inch tall, cast resin with the eyes are glued in, and we sell about 80 of them a month, all in different colors.
They're like Pokemon. You want to collect them all.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. So this is a collaboration I did with Kid Robot. Kid Robot makes platform toys that are basically one shape. So if you look at the silhouette of that character, it's like a sort of a rabbit type character. and they allowed me to kind of play with the shape of the design a little bit. So I made this sort of, the theme of the series that was coming out was apocalypse, so I made sort of a toxic meltdown character. These are actually 8-inch, usually they sell them in 2-inch, and I actually have both of these samples of those back there. But they made 4 different versions of these. And the thing I guess I'm sort of best known for right now is as many days as I can a week, I do a new drawing and I post them to my social media. Mostly on Instagram, I get a lot of hits. But I do a new drawing every single day. I try to do a new character, new subject matter, and if you go there. That's about 100 of them. I'm up to about 750 now. So it's just sort of an exercise in you know, discipline and making sure that I'm constantly striving to get better at drawing. And then sometimes I translate them into more graphic images for things like stickers and more commercial stuff. All right, Amanda's next.
Okay, hi, I'm Amanda. I'm originally from Warren, Ohio, so Trumbull County, anybody? Yeah, there you go. I went to school for graphic design, so I'm a formally trained graphic designer, which I still use a lot, but I kind of diverged away from that and went kind of straight into three-dimensional sculpture and sewing. And so my most common thing that I make are these little things that I call dust bunnies, and they're basically like, they have sculpted faces, human teeth, and like soft, they're heavy, they weigh like about as much as a bag of sugar, and they kind of feel like that, so they're these little kind of lumpy, flumpy, little baby bunny things. I don't know what they are, but...
That's a pretty accurate description of what they are.
So there's another one. So the same with Chris, I do a lot of work for galleries. These are all gallery pieces, so they're kind of our like gallery quality where you spend, you know, multiple days on one thing, and they're very, very time inclusive. Oh yeah, you want to take a break and do that right now?
Yeah, we're going to stop for 1 second.
Okay, so, pause.
So since the theme of the day was collaboration, we want everybody to collaborate on a drawing.
We started so you're not scared to begin.
You can draw, you can write, you can do whatever you want, just keep it clean, folks.
This is a family program.
Keep it clean, Steve. Alright, have fun though. That's the biggest thing. Okay.
Okay, so there's another guy. So from that, I decided that I wanted to have things that weren't necessarily made out of fabric, because not that I don't love working with fabric, but it's kind of difficult to work with sometimes, because when things are constantly in motion, it's difficult to anchor things to them without them snapping off or moving, and I wanted something that was more rigid. So I came up with this little guy whose name is Poppy Seed, and he's kind of like a rigid version of my cloth dust bunnies. This is a little guy named Pumpernickel. He's a larger one. He's a chunk. He's like 9 inches tall, and he's like a giant hand grenade, basically. He weighs like 1.5 pounds. He's amazing.
And he's great when he goes through security at the airport.
Yeah, TSA loves those.
They love seeing giant solid masses of resin in the shape of that, and they can't figure out what it is. And then they open it up and it's looking right at them.
It's always an adventure at the airport. These little guys, they're really small. They're kind of the companion to Chris's bug bite pieces. They're named Pipsqueak. And these are some, so I do both, I'll sell like unpainted ones that are really cheap, they're like under 20 bucks. And these ones are more because they're painted, they've got glass sides fitted in, they're really, really carefully detailed. And I made these little kind of grubby little baby cribs for them, which are all dingy. And I like hand cut those little labels on the cribs are seriously like 1/4 of an inch tall.
They look like they came out of an abandoned hospital, though.
That's a good thing, right?
There's a charm to that.
So there's an unpainted Pipsqueak. There's some more. They come in all colors, all flavors. Pistachio.
We love glitter, by the way.
Yeah, all the glitter. So this little guy named Snowshoe, he is a different kind of toy. He's what they call, he's a Japanese sofubi toy. And sofubi is a kind of vinyl toy that they've been making since, what, the 30s?
Yeah.
In Japan? And it's basically like molten vinyl is put into a metal mold, and it's kind of a centrifuge. So they glop the hot molten vinyl into the mold, spin it around, it coats the outside, and then they yank the whole thing out while it's still soft, and put them together and spray paint them, and there you go. So it's kind of an old style version of toy.
But it's all handmade, so they're made one at a time. Very time consuming process.
Okay, just some drawings. I like eyeballs. I also made the puppets for an animated short called The Maker, which it's beautifully done. Like the animator is named Christopher Cazellas, he's Australian, and he contacted me having a little idea for an animated short, and he wanted to know if I would do the puppets for it. So this is one of 2 puppets that are in the film, and I highly recommend you go watch it. It's a beautiful little story. If you go on YouTube, just search for The Maker, and it'll come up. It's got like 4 million views so far, and for good reason. He did an amazing job on it, and the soundtrack is really beautiful. Okay, let's talk about why we're actually here.
We've been doing collaborative gallery shows for about 4 years now, and always at the same gallery. We've done a few other collaborative shows in Japan, actually. But we try to, when we have shows, we work really closely together in terms of crossover pieces like the ones that you just saw. Can you go back a couple? So these are actually work done by both of us. So the larger piece on the bottom, the shark, was my sculpture, and the little guy in the bucket was also my guy, and Amanda did the character on the top. And then the one on the right, again, I did the character on the bottom, and Amanda did all the accessories and the character on the top.
So the names of these are, on the left, it's Ahab and the Cargo Shuttle, and on the right, it's Gallivant and the Husky Shumbler.
That's right.
We work a lot together to determine like theme and color. We both have backgrounds in commercial art. We both worked at American Greetings. You still work at American Greetings.
Still do.
So we have a background in, hi everybody, we're AG. We have a background in kind of like style boarding, coming up with themes, coming up with color palettes, all that kind of thing. So we actually use Pinterest a lot, and we make these private boards where we kind of do style guiding for ourselves and pick reference for the shows. This is from a show we did called Unseen Forces that had a bunch of like mystical crystals and kind of dark, kind of occultic things going on.
Yeah, sometimes when we come up with themes for the shows, it comes pretty naturally, but sometimes it'll lean further on one of us than the other, and at first it's kind of a challenge, but we try to figure out ways that we can work within it. Like the last show we did was all sort of an undersea theme, and Amanda really hadn't explored that in her work quite yet. I wasn't really sure how to do it, but
it was good. It was good to stretch.
Yeah.
So there's some more. This is concepting from mostly Chris on Unseen Forces, so we can see some shapes of characters starting to take shape and some symbology and different kind of applications of things. We do a lot with color, so we'll come up with a centralized palette at the beginning before we start anything. Usually the palette's the first thing we come up with after coming up with a theme.
Yeah, we both work within the same color palette to make the shows more cohesive, and these are just laying out some color chips on the resin pieces before I paint them. I try to keep things as organized as possible so we know where we're at in the process.
So we'll come up with a palette, we'll go buy or mix paints together to make sure that the colors that we use across all of our pieces. And we'll actually like paint whole papers and make like these little color chips so that when we do resin multiples, we can lay them out and make sure that everything matches. So this is for Safe Harbor. This was our kind of aquatic nautical theme. This is more colors. So this is my ears for my bunnies laid out in the same palette. Here's some faces done in the same palette. And here is a picture from the final show where you can see the palette represented on those nautical flags and just some different pieces all containing those different colors. And here's a picture from Unseen Forces. So that one was really neutral. There was a lot of gray and white and silver and black with little pops of color. So it really helps the whole thing kind of hold together cohesively, I think, visually.
And the nice thing about the gallery that we work with when we go and do installations there, they have tons of like crates and old antique trunks and things like that, and they kind of let us have free reign over the space. They've trusted us to do it. We've had 4 sold-out shows in a row now, and so they kind of trust us to do whatever we want. And we just show up and take the whole first day to just set everything up, and I think that's the most fun part of the show.
I think so.
The rest is just crying and painting and
staying up till 4 a.m., crying more. Okay, so.
All right, so we're.
This isn't a TED Talk, so
yeah, no.
We're not going to be like the respect. We're going to talk. No, this is just stuff that works for us. So
this is how we handle things. It works for us, but we're weirdos, so it might not work for you guys. So respect is one of those basic human courtesies that you can extend to people when you're working in a group. And you know, a lot of this stuff is stuff you learn in kindergarten, how to work with other people. how to be nice and share. And,
it's easy to forget though.
Yeah,
so.
and not punch, and you know, it can become really difficult. And sometimes you work with, you know, a lot of different people with a lot of different attitudes, and, you know, but remember that everybody from the CEO of the company all the way down to the person putting the last piece of tape on a box before it's shipped is really important to the whole process. So just extend respect to everybody that you can, as much as you can.
Keep your ego in check. Yeah. That's really important.
And if you're being a jerk, stop being a jerk.
Okay, let's introduce our people.
Okay, here's a few people that we're going to mention their names a few times because we're going to be talking about one project in particular, and they were pretty integral in the process. So this is Jamie. Jamie is the owner of Cardboard Spaceship Toys. They're out of San Jose, California?
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz, one of those Santas out in California. Jamie was he was the project manager for our project, and he was on the phone in the middle of the night to China constantly for weeks and weeks, getting this whole thing produced. So
he's the entire reason that this thing was done.
He backed the whole project, and without him, we couldn't have gotten this done. So good guy to know. This is Scott. Scott is the 3D modeler. He's a sculptor essentially digitally. So he's the one who translated our figures into toys. And this is Steve in the crowd. You'll probably see him. Steve. Those
are anger lines coming out of him, by the way.
He is approachable, but just approach with caution. Steve is our guy in Cleveland. He's our get shit done guy. So whenever we need, he runs the back end of our web stores and he handles our fulfillment.
Everything else.
And
and then he fixes it.
Steve reminds us that if you can hire somebody to do it, hire somebody to do it. So not everything has to be done by you. You don't have to be a hero. So thank you, Steve.
So the project in question is something we literally just did. This actually all came at a really good time, talking about collaboration, because we just finished this toy series called Thimble Stump Hollow, and it was a vinyl blind box toy series made in China. Blind box means that they're little figures, they're 12 bucks each, but you don't know which one you're getting when you buy.
So it's like baseball cards. When you buy a pack of baseball cards, you don't know what you're getting exactly, but part of the fun is opening the box and trying to get the ones that you want. And where these vinyl toys sort of exist is there's a whole realm of designer vinyl toys that are made in smaller quantities, hence the more expensive prices.
All right, and there's lots of people who collect them, and they collect them for different reasons, and some people are like super completists, like, you know, like I have to have all the Pokemon, I have to have all the things, and then some people are like, I just really want a couple for my desk at work, and that's awesome, all different kinds of people. So, go ahead.
Most of these series are designer driven. They're based on an artist's design. They're not necessarily based on a certain property or anything. So these ones were basically our characters. They just wanted to turn our characters into toys.
Yeah, so top row are the ones that I designed, and the bottom row are the ones that Chris designed.
But the first step in the collaboration was Cardboard Spaceship approached me several years ago and wanted to do an entire line with just me, and I wasn't really ready to do it at the time, but since I was working with Amanda so much and we kind of became synonymous with each other, I said, well, why don't we just do it together, and figured, you know, cross-promotion is always good. And plus, I wouldn't have to do as much work myself.
It helps. That's one good thing about collaboration. You really cut down on the amount of stuff that you have to do personally. So we'll give you, since we're going to be talking about this project in depth, we'll give you kind of an overview of what goes into, this is a very small overview because this whole thing took about 1.5 years to come to fruition. So this is a small overview of what goes into making a toy series. So it starts with sketches. So here's sketches, and a lot of them were ultimately scrapped, but some of them came through to the final.
Yeah, I think we had 20 different designs initially, and it got broken down into 10.
And then they go to digital modeling. So a digital sculptor will start taking your sketches, you draw little turnarounds, and they start from really crude shapes, and then kind of work them through to the finished shapes, which are output, and then molds are made from them. So here's some sculpting showing what Scott, our digital modeler, was working for.
So the photograph obviously is one of my sculptures, and I was just giving you some reference in terms of how I wanted the texture to look and how I wanted the mouth to look. The model on the right is initially how he had designed it, but the mouth kind of goes down, and it wasn't really matching how I designed mouths. Things cutting in and out.
Sorry about that. Oh.
And then the one in the middle is mine. You can see there's like darker lines in the middle. That's the drawovers that I did to show him what I wanted it to be like.
And again, with our palettes, we go through and choose a palette first. So they have these things that they call them colorways. Basically, they're like waves of releases. So for this toy, we have 4 colorways. So they'll be released like in like one wave in each of these colors. So we have the Carnival, Buttermint, Leprechaun, and Tropical colorways that we settled on.
And the main reason why we do that is not just for collectability. When you're mass producing things in China, they work on minimums. So in order to get in the door, you have to have something like 3,000 pieces. But this is, I think there's...
We end up making about 30,000.
About 30,000 pieces. And in order to get... From a marketing standpoint, we're not that big, so we want to try and spread it out as much as possible, so we break it up into different colorways.
And it's more fun because I love making color palettes, so when you get the chance to make more, that's always good.
And they're not all done in the same ratios, so some of the colorways are only done in about an addition of 300, and some are in the thousands, so some are more coveted.
So then they go to factory production. There's a bunch of little butts on sticks all lined up getting painted.
All my characters have butts. If you turn around, you'll see all their butts. Because everybody's got butts, right? You should all be used to that by now.
Here's another one in the tray in the factory. Here's, his name's Pippet getting painted.
Again, this goes back to the respect thing. This is one person with paintbrush hand painting these things, so.
And you can see all the colors she's got going, and she's painting that ruffle completely by hand, which is kind of amazing.
But I think it's just her job, just to work on that particular character.
All the way to the packaging that we had to design. We actually had to design 4 pieces of packaging for this. There were 2 colors of each single boxes and case boxes. You can see examples of both up at the front when you are on your way out. Okay, let's talk about trust.
All right, trust. So this is the Slumber Guppy. This is one of the more popular characters so far. Originally in 2011, I did this drawing based on my daughter, who, when she passes out hard, like an old man, like with her mouth open and drooling. And she has a teddy bear named Little Big Planet, which is named after a video game. It makes no sense whatsoever, but it's hilarious. And she's never without this bear. She's 9 years old now, and she takes it everywhere still. But initially, I hadn't submitted this design to the toy project because it's a little different. It doesn't have my signature big black eyes. It was laying down. It wouldn't stand up the same way as the rest of the characters. But Jamie was really adamant that he wanted this character in the series. So I kind of updated the character a little bit to make it fit a little more, changed the ears so that it would fit with the other characters. But I was still really hesitant, even up until the thing was produced, to have him in the series. But ultimately, I trusted Jamie's judgment, and Scott did an awesome job modeling him.
And he's like the one that everyone wants.
Yeah, he's a real heartbreaker. So, and if he's over there, you can see his butt is floored.
So communication. I will say communication is probably the most important aspect of collaboration.
Yeah,
timely, honest, thorough, honest. It's really important. Like
clear.
Yeah, clarity. If you can kind of put aside, like, be polite, but don't wait until there's an emergency to bring something up, because everything will come screeching to a halt and it's horrible. So if you can, within a project, talking to people, just open up and talk to them. There is no stupid question. You get all wormy and your armpits will sweat, but you got to bring it up anyway. It's totally worth it. So with communication, we have a lot of that when we're doing a toy series, because we have to work with the digital sculpt. We have to work with the digital sculptor a lot to make this happen, and it's a lot of communication. He lives in Texas. We live in Ohio, so that was all done via text and email.
This is an example of my drawovers on for editing a sculpt, and you can tell that it's my drawovers because it looks like an insane person did them. Nice and neat. But just communicating to him as clear as possible what I wanted to have done with the character.
So what happened in this was what we call the Great Ruffle Incident of 2014, which everything came together really well. Scott is a really talented sculptor. With some back and forth, he was able to really capture kind of the essence of our pieces. So this is Pippet. He's a little kind of pipsqueak-like bunny, and he's supposed to have this kind of like fabric-looking ruffle, much like the kind of apron picture that you can see at the top. So this was my first like, this is, communication, this is how we make the ruffle, this is what I'd like it to look like. So based on the first thing that I got back. So after that, I got this version back. It's curved, but it's still pretty chunky, so I thought maybe I need to sculpt something and take a picture of it so you can really see what the texture and shape needs to be. Then I got that back, which has a little dip in it, and it's getting less geometric, but it's still not quite there. So Chris and I did this kind of draw over to say, like, bring it in, it should look like fabric that's bunched at the edge.
And that's all the time, we're talking back and forth saying, like, Scott knows what he's doing, what's going on here? We have no idea why this isn't working.
So this is the second one that came in, so it turns down a little bit, and it's more smooth, but it's still not, so I trace the top and say, so all that happened, and we're getting, it's getting down to the wire at this point, and we're freaking out because everything looks fine except for this. And it suddenly occurred to Scott that maybe he should call me on the phone rather than try to communicate all of this via text, because we're both kind of like shy artist people, and we don't really like to do any face-to-face or voice-to-voice communication. It makes us super nervous. So he called me and we talked about it, and it turns out that he was using some kind of a geometric algorithm in his program, thinking that there was a certain way he had to make this ruffle. And when I described what it could look like, and he realized he could approach it not from a mathematical standpoint, but from more of a sculptural standpoint, we got that. And it worked out, and it looks exactly like I wanted to. So the hard thing to do was to pick up the phone and call, but it turns out that that was the best thing to do, and had I done that at the beginning, it might have saved us a whole lot of heartbreak and time.
All right, compromise. So with this entire series, we were basically compromising our designs. We're used to working in a certain level of detail, we're working with a certain level of paint and color, but with this particular application in vinyl, there's only so much a factory can do in terms of what our budget was.
And keep the price down for the consumer too.
So on the right is Burble Bum in his original form. He's a resin figure that I hand sculpted, and you can tell there's a lot more detail, a lot more wrinkles, a lot of warts. There's paint on every single wart. There's probably 15 different paint applications on that. But that's just not realistic in terms of what we needed with the toys. So there is sort of a compromise in design.
Oh, here is the original, which you saw before, and we wanted to duplicate that kind of an idea. So obviously it's a lot more scaled back, it's a lot more simplified, but it still represents our voice. I think another thing of compromise is seeing your artistic vision through another artist's lens is often when you're a creative person, whether that's music or writing or anything, seeing your ideas interpreted by somebody else, you can get this real, like, kind of, oh, that's not right, it's not exactly how I do it, and it's hard to let go, but in the end, like looking at Pipsqueak on the right compared to Pipit on the left, it's not exactly the same. It has, like, it's stiffer, it's not quite the same, but at the same time, I wouldn't want it to be exactly the same. And it is kind of cool to see your stuff slightly different, so I look at that as a good thing.
The thing that we like to tell each other a lot when we're working on things in our studio is that we're the only ones that are gonna know what we initially wanted to have happen. And, we're looking at things under this lens of scrutiny that everything has to be perfect, everything has to be exactly how we want it. But we realize that the consumer, the viewer, isn't always going to look at it in that term. Like, we'll look at a seam line and there's glue or something, we're like, no way to get that. But, like...
People don't ultimately care.
People don't care, they just want the character and they love the character. And especially with these toys, a big problem that we've had in the past is we have a lot of fans that just, they can't access our stuff because it sells out really fast, because it's really limited, and it's really expensive. So what we wanted to do with these is get them in the hands of people that couldn't get them before.
Everybody, kids, new people, everybody.
So there's a lot of compromise in terms of design, but it's doing exactly what it needs to do.
So lemons into lemonade. This is another thing that is really important in collaboration. Big shocker here, not everything works out. You are always going to run into this kind of oops moment where something is kind of majorly falling apart. And this happened with these two, Gadabout and a Husky Shuffler.
While we were on vacation.
In Florida, at Disney World, at about 7 in the morning in a hotel room, crying.
Yeah.
Okay, So here's the original digital sculpt. The original idea between these guys is that he was supposed to be a small representation of that big piece that we showed you earlier, and it was supposed to be all one piece. So when you open the box, like, he was just a really scaled down version of this. And that was the idea. So he was one of 9 possibilities that you get when you open the box.
So the major problem was a breakdown in communication. It was never clearly communicated to the guys at the factory that these were supposed to be sold together.
And they really wanted to maximize the size possible, so to make every one as big as they could be in the box, so that everybody gets their money's worth. And then we got it back. They looked awesome, and then we realized, oops, there is no way those guys are fitting in the box together. We tried to like Tetris it together in every way. It was impossible.
And I think we were on our 8th revision of the box at the time already anyway, and we're like, should we just try to make the box bigger? But there was no way to do it. The trigger had been pulled on building the box already. So after a lot of back and forth and just kind of being very upset about it, we said, okay, ultimately, what's the worst that could happen? We'll sell these things separately. And that's what we had to do anyway. But it ended up turning out better from a marketing standpoint too, and also, when you pick up the box, you can't tell that you got the heaviest one. Because they're blind box, you're not supposed to know what you're getting. So
people do that. They'll like go through and like shake, like before Christmas, like they'll shake and squeeze and weigh them out to try to find, and you would easily be able to find that one because it would be twice as heavy as all the other ones. So breaking them up actually made that better. It also gave it a more even value across all the boxes. You wouldn't have like one mega valuable one in the set.
And plus, if you got one, you're going to want to hunt for the other ones. It's making people want to get more of them if they don't have them. So our ultimate solve was to put these little IKEA-style directions.
This is the side of the little box.
This goes on this. And we had to make sure it's sold separately. And we watched, they sold at Comic-Con, we watched them sell 80 cases of these things to people, and people opened them up right in front of us, and not a single disappointed person in the crowd.
And everyone was just as happy to get one.
Just us being big babies.
And that's the thing, you have to kind of you have to let go. And that's really, really hard for creative people. So that's what we have. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. We have just a little bit of time. We're going to try and get out of here by around 10 o'clock, which is like maybe 15 minutes or so. So a couple questions. If anybody's got anything, put your hands up if you got any more.
Okay, so I don't get the business side of this. So someone has a vision, but who's taking the financial risk? You don't know if it's going to be successful.
Well, the Cardboard Spaceship, the producers of the toys, they sort of base their risk based on our reputation. And we have sort of a big reputation as artists already anyway. They're seeing that our stuff is selling out really quickly, and even our small stuff that is more accessible is selling out very fast. So they're taking the financial risk. They've taken the financial risk with several other artists before, and they've had success with it. So they're the ones, ultimately pulling the trigger financially.
That toy series wasn't us. That was all them.
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
So are you getting paid in the meantime?
Yes, we are.
Did they approach you?
Yes. And we've had several companies, and when something like this happens, obviously it's really successful already. We've had a lot of other companies approach us, and wholesalers and retailers are approaching them already to try and get these things in their stores. That was sort of our soft launch at San Diego Comic-Con, and we have a lot of retailers already lined up for the rest of the series.
Were you in museums strictly before that, or
galleries and museums?
Or galleries.
Yeah.
Okay. And then did you decide to do Comic-Con, or did this company take you?
I've been to Comic-Con about 7 or 8 times now, and with different companies. Like, I'll have something small come out, or they'll ask me to produce something and have it at a booth, just to draw people in, and I'll do signings there. But they pay for us to come out for promotion for the series.
Any more? Put your hands up if you have any more questions. Right over here.
Hi. So you kind of maybe covered this earlier, but how did you two start deciding to work together and kind of move beyond being a single solo artist?
Well, we're kind of a gross schmoopy art couple anyway, so it's handy. We work and basically live together. So I think we kind of fell into the same kind of scene of galleries. And we were doing a lot of shows together all the time anyway. And our styles are really, really similar in a way. So we felt like, well, why not? We're already working on the same stuff. Our sensibility of, you know, kind of design and color and stuff already meshes together. I don't know, was it 4 years ago or so? We just started working a lot more together. There used to be an art, well, I guess still is, an art collective called Circus Posterous. It was maybe like 7 or 8 artists that all worked together, and we kind of both independently fell into working with them, and then we just started working together more and more and more, and we've just kind of been working more closely. Pretty soon we'll be the same person, artistically.
But power, the power, dang, dang, diggy, 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 send the boogie, send up, drop the boogie.